All aboard! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, football fans of all ages, I am Beast Mike. You have now arrived in my train of thought. It's time to talk about the power rankings. And a lot of movement happened based off of last week and a lot of chaos that happened. The Zombie Tier really stepped up and won a lot of their games this past week. And we're going to start, as always, in the Fulton, Kentucky Zombie Tier. Tennessee was not one of these teams that won last week, but they're on the clock. The Titans, just like last year, as everything ended right now, would have the first overall pick in this draft. And they're the only team, as I mentioned yesterday, without 2 wins. This is probably for the best, Tennessee. Please draft an offensive lineman that can help out Cam Ward, or a wide receiver that can help out Cam Ward. That would also be good. Maybe even a defensive end, because there's 2 really good ones at the top of this draft. And either one of them could be your defensive cornerstone of the future. I guess that would also work too. The Jerry Snead trade has not worked, and he's hurt, and that's just not a good look there. New York Giants, Devin Williams. Now, some of you may not understand the reference, but here's where I mentioned him. Devin Williams was an acquisition that the Yankees made this past offseason to try to bolster up the back end of their bullpen. He was an excellent closer from Milwaukee, whose last moment in Milwaukee was giving up 3-run homer to Pete Alonso. It's not great. As it turned out, that version of Devin Williams parlayed itself and carried itself to New York, where, for the most part, he was basically a gas can on the mound. And he gave up a lot of runs, and it was not good, and he blew a lot of games. The Giants have blown a lot of games and given up a lot of points in fourth quarters. They've blown 3 leads by 10 points or more in those fourth quarters. Obviously, they have not been the same since the Bronco game, and now Jackson Dart's concussed. But at least Brian Dable got fired, which a lot of people in the Giants fan community seem to be perfectly okay with. Although Joe Shane's still there. That's not so great. But anyway, you are basically Devin Williams, and you blow a lot of games. I don't expect you to blow this one against the Packers coming up on Sunday. New Orleans, kind of impressive win. I gotta give the Saints credit. They also beat the Giants earlier this year, but this ain't about that. What this is about is how they beat Carolina. They were pretty impressive in doing so. They played really good defense. And though, yes, Bryce Young made a bunch of mistakes, and company made a bunch of mistakes, the Saints played pretty well. I will give them credit. Chris Olave obviously won the battle against J.C. Horn. Good work by the Saints. They're not going to have too many of these, but I salute New Orleans when they get them. Good job, Saints. Cleveland, 3 plays. That's all it took for the Jets to beat the Browns. And when that's all it takes for you to lose a game, that's not great. And 2 of the 3, the defense had nothing to do with. It was the 2 kick returns, where Cleveland had a kick return after the Browns scored, and then a punt return later on in the first quarter, and then the Breece Hall screen play, where Justin Fields is going to get absolutely destroyed, which he did on that particular play, and then they still score. Justin Fields had yet another one of those disastrous games, and yet found a way to win because the Browns gave up 3 chunked plays. Oof. Cincinnati. Burrow's getting healthier. Okay, good. The Bengals are getting their franchise back. They're getting Joe Burrow back in probably a couple of weeks. Good to see that. Their defense probably gave up 30 points on the bye. That's not so great, but they probably gave up 30 points on the bye because Bengals, their defense is trash. Still, it's good to see that Burrow's going to be back. The problem is, are they going to run out of time by the time he gets back? It feels like they will, because I don't trust their defense to hold leads or stop people from scoring. Las Vegas. Ino's probably thrown. Just like the Bengals, the Raiders were on a bye last week too, and Geno Smith probably throwing Ino during the bye. But all kidding aside of that, I do kind of want to know about the Raiders. Can they do something offensively? Can their play calling somehow kind of improve, because it just hasn't been there? Can Geno not be this version of himself where he's an abject disaster waiting to happen? Can they improve on these things? They're going to have to ASAP. New York Jets, Ohio State champs. Well, the good news is for the Jets, they have 2 wins. And they also have those wins against both the Ohio teams. You see where I'm going here? They don't have wins outside of the state of Ohio. That's not great. And unfortunately for the Jets, they don't play any other team. There are no other teams in the state of Ohio, at least that call Ohio home. That's not so great, especially considering their next opponent is generally a bully of theirs and the Patriots. I don't like the Jets' chances of getting win number 3. And Washington, MIB Pen. I think that's what the Commanders and their fans probably want right about now, considering this season's been an abject failure pretty much from the word go. The Jaden Daniels injuries, plural. The defense regressing horribly, which is saying something considering that defense wasn't good last year. At least Dan Quinn's taking over the play calling, but it's not great. You're not going to have Deron Payne on the field on Sunday after the punching through. Got him suspended. Obviously, Jonathan Allen got ejected last week. They're crashing out on defense. It's not great. Marcus Mariota is going to have to play quarterback in Madrid. And for that matter, Terry McLaurin's not going to be one of the guys he's throwing to. So it's been a disastrous year for Washington in so many ways, shapes, forms, and fashions. At least while in Washington, you can watch Alex Ovechkin had his all-time goal-scoring lead. He's over 900 now. Congrats, Ovi. And now let's get to the zombie tier games. Cowboys, Raiders, Monday Night Football. Dallas is coming off the bye, and they're going to be able to show off their shiny new toys on defense. And Logan Wilson and especially Quentin Williams. The latter will obviously be well in play to deal with Ashton Jeanty and the Raiders' offensive line as it is. Can Dallas make some sort of improvement? Because let's face it, they're the NFC's Bengals. Can they make some sort of improvement on defense and make things happen on that front? As they really need the wins the Cowboys do to save themselves. And for the Raiders, can Geno Smith carve up what's already been a terrible defense for the most part? How different will this defense play with the two new guys that they got, the Cowboys? How different will they play with the two new guys they got on defense? And the other zombie tier game I wanted to focus on was Titans and Texans. And in the case of Tennessee, can you keep Cam Ward healthy? Because Houston's defense is absolutely absurd right now. And we'll get to Houston in a little bit, but their defense is absolutely insane. And for Cam Ward, who saw this team already earlier this year, and things did not go well. How well will they go this time? And will CJ Stroud be healthy? He was concussed and did not play last week. And now we need to know if Stroud will be healthy enough to play this week. And if not, can Davis Mills parlay the momentum that he and the offense shared in the last quarter they played against Jacksonville? And can they do something in the 4 quarters they will play against the Titans? We'll look into that. We're also going to look into the Birmingham, Alabama fork in the road, or monkey's paws here, if you will. Atlanta, quickly cratering. The fastest bird in all of the skies are cratering and quickly. They have been an abject disaster since the Buffalo game, and in this case, there's no shame in not being able to stop Jonathan Taylor. The problem is they didn't take advantage of the opportunities they had when Daniel Jones fumbled a few times. They didn't take advantage of the opportunities they had when they had the ball. They couldn't figure it out in overtime, and we saw the results when they didn't. They were punished for this, as Indianapolis basically crammed the ball down their throat. Good work by the Colts. And for the Falcons, their season is fading fast, and it feels like it's a shame because they have good pieces on both offense and defense. They just can't seem to put it together. That's unfortunate. Miami, 1,141 days. Before last Sunday, the last time the Dolphins beat the Bills was September 25th, 2022. That was the game where Tua took the controversial hit from Matt Milano, and people thought he was concussed. He was ruled that he cleared whatever protocol that was and got to play the second half, and it threw the best pass of the day when he threw a dime to Jalen Waddle, which set up the go-ahead score. And then Miami was able to win the game because Buffalo ran out of time, and Buffalo complained ever since because they were playing in the heat, and they were complaining about the exhaustion. The Miami players had cramps in that game too, and Buffalo was able to get their way the next 2 years by playing night games in Miami. They won both of them. Now they played a day game in Miami, and they got crushed. And these Dolphins played pretty well. Some of the guys that you heard of, like Devon Achane and Jalen Waddle, and the aforementioned Tua, they did those 2 arm punts, as in-os. And the guys that you may not know, like Juju Brents and Jason Marshall. Now, Brents is a player that was drafted by the Colts in the second round a couple years ago, and he finally got the start in this league as a Dolphin. He played really well. John Gruden gave him his flowers on yesterday, which is good to see. And then Jason Marshall, who was on the opposite side of him, also played well. And for a Dolphins secondary that desperately needed people to play well in it, that was a very good sign. They also got the Bills to turn over the ball 3 times and basically locked down James Cook. This was a very good win for the Dolphins. Now, I don't know what this will mean for the rest of the year. The rest of the year is probably still already lost because the hole may be too deep for them to get out of. But this is a good sign for the future. Can Brenton, Marshall, and company continue to improve a secondary that desperately needs it? Dallas. Nico got fired. There's not much really to say about the Cowboys. I already explained that last week with the trades they made, and we all know about the defense and how bad it is and how Dak has struggled the last couple weeks. But let's talk about Nico Harrison real quick and the disastrous 9 months that's been when it comes to him, and how he traded away a generational talent in Luka Doncic, which probably gave Jerry Jones the inspiration to trade away a generational talent in Micah Parsons. But we ain't talking about that right now. What we are going to talk about is how then after this happened, Kyrie tore his ACL. Dallas somehow got lucky with the draft lottery and won Cooper Flag. And then the Mavericks come out with a very brittle Anthony Davis, because of course he is. And then they proceed to get walloped by the Spurs and lose to the Wizards convincingly, and they've gone 3-8 to start the season, which is as bad as it can be for a team that's actually relatively talented. And now Harrison's fired, and the Maverick fans are exhausted and pretty much done with this whole season. Kyrie's not coming back for a while, and it just looks like it's going to be an awful year for Dallas. But at least they got their pound of flesh in Harrison being fired. At least there's that. Arizona, beat down without stress. Yeah, they took a beating. This game was over early and fast. I think by the time a lot of the early games were over, the Cardinals game was too, and they were only in the first quarter with the 2 strip sacks and touchdowns by former Cowboy DeMarcus Lawrence, ironically. This was, at least for the Cardinals' sake, the first really, really bad loss. And okay, fine. Seattle's really good. They're going to be entitled here again, as I will spoil that, but I won't spoil where or now. Arizona just looked ugly this past week and looked badly overmatched. It may be even worse because they won't have Marvin Harrison Jr. this week against the Niners. But the Cardinals season was already kind of cooked. It's just a matter of how bad this record's going to be and whether Jonathan Gannon can survive it. Carolina laid an egg. I didn't think I would say those 3 words with that team. And the Panthers, unfortunately for themselves, they deserved it. They were bad last week against New Orleans. As good as the Saints played, and let's face it, the Saints outplayed them, Carolina just didn't look good at all. Way too sluggish, way too sloppy. Things just never worked out for the Panthers at all after the Rico Dowdle touchdown. And it's a shame that Dowdle, as well as he's played, it just didn't get the help that he needs. And Bryce Young, maybe this is just who he is at this point, where things aren't going they're not as ideal as they need to be. Maybe he's just not that guy. And is it on the board that Carolina should just draft a new quarterback? Maybe. I wouldn't put it past him, because I don't see franchise when I see Bryce Young. Now they're brothers in feline in Jacksonville. 179 and 26. The 179 yards were the difference between what Houston gained and what Jacksonville gained in terms of total yardage in the fourth quarter of the collapse that was with Jacksonville. Houston had 180 yards from scrimmage in the fourth quarter. Jacksonville only had 1. That's not great. The 26 are the points that Jacksonville gave up. They didn't score any in the fourth quarter. Also not great. What's even worse, well, almost as bad as this choke, was Travis Hunter's injury situation. He's going to be out for the season with the knee surgery. And now we're talking a Jacksonville team, though they do have 5 wins. Where are they really going to go here? Where are they? They feel like they're in a crossroads type of deal. They are currently in playoff contention, yes. But how long can they truly last? Because it just, I don't get the vibe that they're a real playoff team. And I get the vibe that they may crater after this collapse. Will this loss do to them what the Giants lost, what the Broncos comeback over the Giants did to New York? Minnesota, the number 9. Somehow J.J. McCarthy allegedly has an alter ego. I didn't see it. I don't see why he has one. I didn't buy that. Baltimore shut that up real quick, and we didn't see it. We didn't see anything worth really getting worried about in the fourth quarter of that game against the Ravens. Now, yes, McCarthy's done some of his best work in fourth quarters, but I didn't see anything that was really that big time or nice about that. Minnesota's still a pretty good team. There's no questioning that. They have good talent. But it just seems like the Vikings are kind of in that mid-tier in the NFC, and they're kind of stuck there, considering the Bears are improving and the Packers and Lions are very good, though Green Bay's got their problems, and the rest of the NFC has got a lot of heavyweights in it. I'm a little concerned about the Vikings in this regard. And Houston, how? How did you go from downright awful to downright awesome in the span of a quarter? Like, that is just wild to me, how the Texans were able to pull that off. Now, yes, their defense is awesome, and there's no question in that. Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, that one-handed NO by Derek Stingley Jr. was outstanding. Cool. But that offense went from, oh, we're really bad, to, oh, we can ball out and cook like this in the span of 15 minutes? Well, technically they scored 19 of the 26 points by offense, or 20 of the 26 points by offense, but the point of it is, the Texans were able to do that fast. That is stunning. Now, against good teams, I don't expect them to do that over and over again, but the fact that they were able to do that like this is impressive. I'm just wondering how they were able to pull that off. Let's talk about the Monkey's Paw tier games. Panthers, Falcons. Two teams that need a win in the worst way. In the case of Carolina, you need to wipe that bad taste out of your mouth that was New Orleans, where they looked downright awful against the Saints. In the Falcons' case, they haven't looked right in the span of a month, and they need to get some win, any win possible. We saw this happen about a month ago, where these two teams played in Charlotte, and the Panthers shut them out 30-0, and it looked every bit as bad as it was on the scoreboard, and maybe even worse, because Bryce Young didn't even play, and they still were able to shut him out 30-0. Mike Penix was the abject disaster. Yikes, it was not great. The point of it being, Atlanta needs to win in the worst way possible, and if Atlanta can't get it here, pack it up, Falcons, and you're wasting a really good pass defense in the process. Commanders, Dolphins, two teams that probably couldn't feel any better or worse, Dolphins feeling the former, Commanders the latter, based off last week's events. In the case of the Commanders, they were unraveling, and they've really unraveled over the last week or so, giving up a good 90 points or so against the Lions and Seahawks at home. And now they're facing a Dolphins team that had everything clicking last week when Tua wasn't throwing arm pumps. It was a good day for Jalen Waddle, but a great day for Devon Achane, who continues to climb up the rushing charts list. He's top 5 in rushing all of a sudden, and is having a spectacular year in terms of overall yards from scrimmage. He's going to probably be an easy 1,500 yards from a scrimmage guy this year. He's been outstanding. Jalen Waddle, also top 10 in receiving yards now. Both guys are cooking. Can other Dolphins also do their parts to take pressure off of Achane and Waddle? Malik Washington, we're looking at you, for example. The Commanders have looked really bad on defense over the last, most of this season pretty much. But Dan Quinn's going to be doing the play calling. How different will their defense be, especially without Deron Payne in it? Because, again, he got suspended for this upcoming game in Madrid. This should be a relatively interesting game, I would say, because if Miami wins, now they go into the bye with a whole lot of momentum. And for the Commanders, considering their season's already kind of lost, I wonder if they can find some sort of consistency and success against a Dolphins team that, though they've been better, could stand to get beaten up because of competent offenses. Not that Washington's shown that they have one this season. Let's go to the Wilmington, Delaware playoff tier. Pittsburgh, Rodgers aging fast. That Charger game was bad, and it was bad to watch. It was bad to see what the Steelers were doing. It was a downright disaster in almost every way possible. Aaron Rodgers looked like he was old and skittish, and he was missing throws, and it was just a downright disaster from the word go. Now, the good news is they're playing a Bengals defense that is pretty terrible, and they've already cooked before. The bad news is they got cooked by said Bengals offense, with old man Flacco doing the cooking. It was not great. Pittsburgh, can you save yourselves from an oncoming Ravens team that is getting healthier and looking way better on defense than they did about a month ago? Good luck, boys. You're going to need it. San Francisco, injuries catching up. Yeah, Mac Jones did not play that well against a Rams team that was clicking on all cylinders. And to be honest, the defense, I don't know if I fault you right now because the Rams have the hottest offense in the game at this moment in time with the way Matt Stafford's been playing. They just didn't have the bodies to deal with what the Rams were cooking. And though they're not going to have too many other matchups to that degree, it just didn't look great. And I just don't know how long San Francisco can last, considering all the injuries they have thus far. Chicago. Caleb really carried. That was a very good fourth quarter by Caleb Williams and company. That was a very good fourth quarter by Roman Dunzy, who caught that touchdown pass, and obviously Caleb with the long touchdown run that he had, and the way the Bears played, especially after the Jackson Dart injury, which, okay, the argument can be made that if Dart plays, the Giants probably win that game because the Giants would have a pulse on offense if they had that. But in this case, the Bears played really well in the fourth quarter on their own, Dart or not, and they played well to keep the Giants' really good pass rush at bay for a lot of this game. So also, again, good work on that part. Chicago suddenly has 6 wins, and they seem to turn the corner on offense. Can they keep it up? Baltimore, they seem inevitable. It feels like the Ravens are coming, and it's only going to be a matter of time before the Steelers get caught and get tracked down by a Ravens team that's starting to get going. Lamar Jackson playing well. Derrick Henry didn't have to do all that much against Minnesota, and they were fine. Zay Flowers did his thing. The defense is no longer the gas can that was previous weeks. Baltimore's starting to get it going, and this is a bad thing for a lot of people. Baltimore could be the most dangerous 6th seed we've ever seen in the NFL playoffs. Buffalo, 2-man offense. That's what it felt like. And maybe I'm disrespecting Dalton Kincaid because Kincaid's a very good tight end. But he got hurt too in the Dolphins game, and that made it even worse for the Bills. Cook and Allen have really done their part, sure. But can you trust anyone else outside of Kincaid? I honestly can't. Keon Coleman is kind of stagnating. Shakir's good. He's the number 3 receiver. Coleman's the number 2 guy. And they just can't get anywhere. James Cook isn't doing, well, what his last name would imply. I just don't see Buffalo as the threat that they've been in years past. It just feels like their window for now is closing. They can get a receiver, sure, in the offseason. They should have traded for one at the deadline. But this year, I just don't buy them. I simply don't buy the Bills as a Super Bowl contender. A true one. Green Bay, not very lovely. These last 2 weeks have been downright ugly. And the Packers have lost 3 games now where the defense has only allowed 13 or less, or something to that effect. The defense has played really well for a lot of these games, and somehow the Packers lost 3 of them. And the offense has just been unable to get any sort of rhythm or consistency or anything outside of Josh Jacobs cooking. Well, that is without Tucker Kraft. And we saw his impact or lack thereof last Monday night when he obviously didn't play because of torn ACL. Not having him hurt badly. They don't even trust any of the receivers. I don't know why, but they can't seem to move without Jacobs doing their thing. Yes, the play calling was really stupid. Not Eagles dumb, because the Eagles had 2 drives of stupidity, but it was really dumb down the stretch for the Packers to have that shotgun draw play on 4th and 1 with Jacobs. I never understood that. I never will. That was dumb. We're going to stay with the Bays and go to Tampa next. Health is concerning. Tampa Bay's in a spot where they are a good team, but it just feels like without the health, they can never be great, especially Bucky Irving. And without Irving, I just don't know where the run game is coming from. They didn't look all that great against New England. Now, New England's got a pretty solid defense, but they didn't look all that great. And it looked concerning that magic they had to start the year when they were making all those comebacks, it just doesn't seem to be there. And maybe that's because they just don't have the healthy guys on offense to help them get there. I think Tampa Bay will still win the division, sure. But it feels like they're one and done because they're going to face a monster coming out of the NFC West or maybe NFC North. In Kansas City, 3 big games. Kansas City's got 3 monster battles ahead, and they may need to win all 3 of them to make the playoffs. I didn't think I'd say that sentence, but it's the truth. Chiefs coming off the bye, and they should be getting healthier now as we get to a showdown that they're going to have with Denver. I will obviously talk about that in a couple of minutes. But first, I'm going to get into Tampa Bay and their game with Buffalo in this tier. A monster game for both these teams. In the case of the Bills, you're now a game and a half behind the Patriots, and it might as well be 2 because you lost to them earlier on this year. So you don't even have tiebreaker now, and now you got to keep up with a Patriots team that should have a free win against the Jets, because usually Patriots-Jets games are free ones for New England. For Buffalo, how do you respond after what was an awful loss against a Dolphins team that couldn't get anything going up until said game, or maybe the Falcons game, I guess? How do you respond after that? How do you come back after that? Can James Cook get going against Vita Vea and company? And if you're Tampa, can Rachaad White and friends, I guess, for Tampa, can they get right against a Bills defense that, as I've said many times, you can run on them if you're inclined to? We've seen Atlanta do it to success. We've seen Miami do it to success. We've seen Baltimore do it, though they crumbled, to success. If you are physically inclined to run the football against the Bills and you have good enough guys to do that, you can handle yours. Can Tampa Bay be the next team to do such a thing? And then, Chiefs, Broncos, the first of 3 monster games between these two teams. As these two teams both have games against each other, 2, and then 1 against the Chargers, each. In Kansas City's case, they are probably going to need all 3 games to make the playoffs. And I, again, didn't think that would be a sentence that I would say, but just the way that their current playoff standing is, and the tiebreakers they don't have, especially against Jacksonville and Buffalo, Kansas City's going to need these games, and they're going to need all 3 of them, more than likely. And if you're Denver, I think they just need these games for legitimacy. And because everyone questions the Broncos' 8-2 record. I'll get to Denver, obviously, in a little bit. But everyone questions their 8-2 record. And 7 of the 8 games that they've won are not super impressive. Although, we can also look at this from Denver's perspective of, okay, the 2 losses are a blown lead against the Chargers and a questionable call at best, a leverage call against the Colts. So there's 2 different perspectives and ways you can look at this. Can Denver get stops, enough of them, without Alex Singleton and Pat Surtain, who are probably not going to play this week, the latter one? Can they run the ball without J.K. Dobbins, who is looking like he might not play this week? Can Bo Nix stop the overthrows? Though Marvin Mims should be back, can Bo Nix stop the overthrows? I'll get into Denver more so in a little bit, but a major game between these 2 teams and AFC West rivals. Let's get to the New York City title tier. LA Chargers, give and take. They can give a beating to your quarterback, and their quarterback also takes a beating. And Justin Herbert seems to get sacked multiple times every single week. Pittsburgh was no different. Another 4-5 last week by the Steelers front, as they were able to get home at will against a papier-mâché offensive line. Yet, Herbert, when he's not getting buried, is doing relatively well. And when the Chargers don't have the football, their defense is also doing their part in getting home to your quarterback. Good work there. Khalil Mack had a good game against the Steelers last week. And the Chargers defense as a whole played really well against the Steelers. Good work there. Can the Chargers keep this up and try not to let Herbert get buried alive behind pass rushers? New England, pause. There's a reason why I say this. Mike Vrabel is going to give TreVeyon Henderson a big load. Sir, no. Let's phrase this a little bit better. Obviously, he means, in terms of carries, giving him the ball a lot, because TreVeyon Henderson is probably the most dynamic player on offense at this moment in time. Good. I think he should get the ball more. He was probably the primary reason why they won against Tampa Bay last week, because those 2 home run long touchdown plays that he had. Stephon Diggs continues to play at a solid clip, but Henderson was probably the reason why they won last week. Still, Mike Vrabel, the phrasing. Gotta pause that, my guy. Detroit, upcoming showdown. They have a big battle coming up this Sunday night, and the other underlying thing about the Lions seems to be Jared Goff in conditions that aren't ideal on the road. When we've seen Jared Goff play road games that are a little chilly, it doesn't go as well as planned. We saw this against Kansas City, and their defense was able to basically suffocate the Lions. It was not great. We saw this, though the conditions were relatively ideal for the Packer game, and their defense suffocated the Lions with relative ease. The Eagles' defense can be spotty, but do they have enough bodies to suffocate the Lions at will? Again, I'll talk about this game in a little bit, but I'm going to talk about the Eagles now. Stupid decision-making. Question, these last 2 drives by Nick Sirianni. Why? Why are you relying so much on the throwing of Jalen Hurts when you have an MVP, former MVP candidate, 2,000-yard rusher behind him? When you have a guy who just showed that he can carry you to a victory, see the Giants game, and you can just give him the ball to salt the game away. Again, you had 2 minutes and change left. The Packers had 2 timeouts, and you have your second down and your third down, and you're throwing it on both downs. Why? I'm glad those passes were incomplete because you didn't deserve to be rewarded for the incompetence. And then, when you have the next drive, your last drive of the game, a 4th and 6 at the Packer 35. Now, you could do one of 3 things in this situation. Kick a 52-yard field goal, even though it would basically mean Jack Elliott's kicking a brick. You could pooch punt it and bury the Packers probably inside their 10, hopefully. Or you could decide to run a play on 4th and 6. They chose option C. It was a pass. It was a bad pass. It was incomplete to A.J. Brown, and the Packers got one more shot at it. Even though they were out of timeouts, the Packers got one more shot at it that they shouldn't have had with competent play calling. Again, why? Why would you do this? Incompetence level on 1,000. You cannot do that. You can't be this dumb. You got away with it because the Packers offense is basically as powerful as a water pistol at this moment in time, but you cannot keep doing this and making stupid decisions. Please stop. Seattle made that quick. Yeah, they buried the Cardinals, and again, by the time the early games that went long ended, the Seattle game was over, and I think that was good to see. I think it was simply good to see that Seattle was just like, okay, Arizona's now on their level, let's bury him and keep it moving. JSN's over 1,000 yards. He's the only receiver to do such a thing, and is making a real case for Offensive Player of the Year. He probably won't win MVP because Jonathan Taylor, but he's got a real shot at Offensive POI because he's got a real shot at breaking the receiving record that Calvin set, or maybe even getting the Triple Crown that Cooper Kupp had a couple years ago. JSN's played that well. There's one fly in the ointment for me with Seattle, and it's the turnovers. They do turn over the ball a little bit more than I would like, especially Sam Darnold. But as long as Seattle can control that, I think they're going to be fine because their defense is ruthless and their defense is relentless at getting home to the quarterback and causing chaos. Just clean up the turnovers, you'll be fine. Indianapolis, Taylor for MVP. Yeah, once again, Jonathan Taylor continues to carry Indianapolis. The dominant performance, 200-plus yards, 240-plus yards, 3 tugs because he gets his touchdowns and threes. He now has 15 of them and is en route to at least Offensive Player of the Year if for some stupid reason people vote quarterback for Offensive POI, although Matt Stafford is in play. Jonathan Taylor has been absolutely carrying Indianapolis pretty much from the word go this year and deserves MVP, whether he gets to 2,000 yards or not. He absolutely deserves the Most Valuable Player award because of the way he's played. Indianapolis didn't make last week easy, but they are able to make it a W. Tyler Warren also played really well, and Tyler Warren has inching up the charts in terms of receiving yards because he's been like that this year. That was a very good pick by Chris Ballard and company. Can Indianapolis keep things going after their bye week? We will see. LA Rams, offense on fire. This is the hottest offense in the game right now, and Matt Stafford's had 3 straight games of 4 tugs or more. That's a crazy stat by Stafford with the way he is dicing people up. And this is also crazy because Puka Nacua didn't play in one of these games. That's how wild this has been. That's how dominant he's been. For Matt Stafford, Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, and company cannot be stopped. Everyone's getting involved. It's not just those 4 guys. The tight ends are cooking. The other receivers are cooking. Everyone's doing their part for the Rams. They too have a monster game coming up on their schedule this week. I will talk about it in a sec, but first I gotta talk about the Broncos, who are number 1. Get well soon. So yes, this can be about J.K. Dobbins and Patrick McCann II and a couple of their other guys. This is more or less about Alex Singleton, who after the Raider game had a drug test that he had to take, and it discovered that he had potential testicular cancer, and he had surgery on Friday to remove the tumor that could have caused it, and will obviously now miss a few games due to it. And it's a good sign that they were able to pick up on it and remove it when they could. That's always good to see. I just hope that he is able to make a full recovery, and it feels like he is, and he's going to probably come back later this season. That's good to see that. For Denver, they are starting to have injury issues, Singleton aside, at the worst possible time because of the ops that are coming into Mile High this week. And as I talked about the game with the Chiefs already, the Broncos, I think, just need more or less wins of legitimacy. They have one with the Eagles. It was a very good comeback. Their other 7 wins are not great when it comes to the vanity that a lot of people look for when it's like, oh, you're 8-2, but look at who you beat. Tennessee, who's terrible. The Bengals, who are terrible. The Jets, who are terrible. The Giants, who you stole that game from. Dallas, who's mediocre at best. Houston, mediocre at best, and you had to survive that game. And the Raiders, who are terrible. So they don't have a lot of pellets on the wall when it comes to, oh, we're like that type of wins. They could use one this Sunday against Kansas City. But now let's talk about the 2 best games of this week, title tier games. They're both NFC games. Seahawks, Rams, massive game between the 2 of them. As I mentioned previously, these 2 teams have 3 monster games, 2 against each other, 1 against the Niners. And obviously the Rams played their Niner game last week. But this is a monster game between these 2 teams, and a game that can truthfully help determine who could be the 1 seed in the NFC. The other NFC game I'm going to mention in the next few moments could also determine such a thing. Anyway, the Seahawks really good and ruthless defense versus the Rams' white-hot offense at this moment in time. Fun matchup between the Seattle secondary versus Nakua and Adams. Although Adams did leave last week's game with the Niners with an injury. He didn't have to come back because they were dominating. How healthy will Adams be? And can the Rams' offense stay hot against a really good Seattle defense? This will be a fun game to watch between these 2 very good teams. And then Lions, Eagles, Sunday Night Football. I think this is your main event this week, even though Seattle and LA could really make a case for it. A really good test for both of these teams. In the case of Detroit, a good test because the conditions will not be ideal. It should be clear skies at least, but the conditions won't be ideal in terms of temperature. And the Lions, with their assortment of weaponry on their offensive side of the ball, can their offensive line hold up against the Eagles, who looked way better on Monday night against the Packers with Jalen Phillips on it? This is going to be a monster game for that Eagles defensive line, a true test for them as they deal with Gibbs and Montgomery, and a Detroit offense that, when they're at their best, are really hard to stop. This should have been the NFC Championship game, but the Lions didn't have a defense last year. They're kind of healthy now, and what will they do against Saquon Barkley and Jay Brown and company? How healthy will Terrion Arnold be? Because Arnold had some injury issues last week. Obviously, you put Arnold on Devontae Smith with the way Smith is playing. And that's going to be fun to talk about, considering their podcast that they did a couple weeks ago with PS2. I do want to see what happens there with the Lions defense against the Eagle offense. Lane Johnson versus Aiden Hutchinson. Let's go. This is a fight. This is a battle I am looking forward to. Can Hutchinson get a little bit of revenge, considering Oklahoma beat up Michigan earlier this year? That was not great for the Wolverines. But we'll talk about that later. Anyway, this is a monster matchup between these 2 teams, and it's on the board that the 2 winners of these games have a real shot at the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. Considering these home field advantages, maybe not the Rams as much, but considering these home field advantages, that's going to be incredibly vital this year. And there you have it. That's the pre-Week 11 Power Rankings. You will see the picks tomorrow on the Sports Lounge page as always. As for the Railway Recap, you already know how this is going to go. Jets, Patriots, you're going to be the first stop of my next train of thought.